In this video, we'll deal with measuring performance in operations. Now, this is one video amongst several on the topic of performance indicators, and it's very well worthwhile looking at the other videos in the series as well. But for the moment, let's deal with measuring performance in operations. Now, there are going to be various measures we can look at under this heading in this session. So I'm just going to break them down, and we're going to start with quality. Quality measures the degree to which the output of a process meets the customer requirements. When the customers place an order, they are looking for something specific. They're looking for a specific set of characteristics in the product. And when products precisely match those requirements, it's said to be good quality. The quality of goods relates to the physical performance and characteristics of a good. It's the suitability of the good to meet the requirements of the customer. And the more precisely the good matches the requirements of the customer, the better is the quality, or the better is the quality judged to be. A common measure of quality is the number of defects per unit, which is computed by dividing the total number of defects found by the number of items examined. So if 100 items are examined and 20 are found to be defects, then it's a 20% failure rate. It depends on how samples are drawn and how many items are inspected and the way the samples are drawn and so on. But we have to get some sort of measure of quality, and sometimes, depending on the nature of the product, we can identify a product as good or bad in very clear terms. It either passes a set of tests or it fails a set of tests. However, the vast majority of products are not that clear cut. Sometimes the quality is judged subjectively. It's judged based on other attributes, and we'll see some of these later in this particular video. Sometimes people judge them on aesthetics or on style or whatever. So we'll talk about those later in this session. Non-conformities per unit are often reported as rates per thousand or per million, and the measure is DPMO, defects per million opportunities. We'll come across this DPMO, or this concept of measuring per million opportunities. We'll talk about this as we go through the session, but that's really how we measure the non-conformities per unit, the number of items that don't conform precisely to the requirements of the customer. It's the number per million or per thousand, and it's measured as DPMO, defects per million opportunities. There are many dimensions of quality, including performance, a good's primary operating characteristics. For example, a car's brakes stops the vehicle. So it's performance. That's one particular attribute of quality. Does the product perform in the way it's expected to perform? Now, if the car's brakes work and the car stops, we could say that the brakes are good quality. The brakes have done their job, or has done its job. It stopped the car. So performance was good quality. So sometimes when we talk about quality, we talk about the performance of the product. It could be also the features. Sometimes this is referred to as the bells and whistles. It's an English expression. Bells and whistles means additional features. So if we talk about a car, we talk about the attributes of the car, and we could say it's also got reclining seats. Now, the reclining seats are something extra, some additional feature which was perhaps not even anticipated when the car was purchased. So that was the bells and whistles. It's something extra. It's additional to the functionality of the car, addition to the performance of the engine, the brakes, and all the vital parts of the car. So this is something in addition, the bells and whistles, the additional bits. Reclining seats could be an example. There are many dimensions of quality, including also reliability. The probability of the manufactured good working over a certain time. For example, vehicle engine always starts on cold days. So the car is reliable. It starts when we want it to start. When we initiate the ignition sequence, the car starts. So it's reliable. It's a reliable vehicle. It's good quality. Conformance, the degree to which characteristics match pre-established standards. Back to the car, for example. The vehicle door does not leak water. It's conformance. It's a conformance to the standards, what we would expect. We would expect the car to not leak when it rains. It's conformance to the standard. It fits the standard. It fits the requirements. It's conforming to the standard. So its conformance is good. Durability. Used before it physically deteriorates. For example, autocorrosion. Sometimes cars rust. The car is still good. The engine's good. The different parts of the engine is good, and the car is still working, except the bodywork is rusting. So its durability, its lifespan is questionable. So if the car doesn't rust, the car could last for perhaps many more years. It would be more durable. So quality can be measured in terms of its durability. How long does the product last? Serviceability. Speed, courtesy, and competence of repair work. For example, we take a car in to be have a small check over. Were the people in the garage polite, and did they answer the questions? Were they courteous? Was it a nice place to wait? Was it a speedy service? Did we have to wait a long time before the car was dealt with, or was it dealt with fast and efficiently? What was the serviceability? And that's part of the quality of the product. And the aesthetics. How good a manufactured look does it have? The good, it should appear pleasant. It should feel good to drive if it's a car. It should have proper sound. The engine should not make loud noises, and it should fit with the taste of the person. So let's say a car, the vehicle style and the colour of the car. It's aesthetics. It's the way it appears. That's how nice is the car. How nice does it look? How appealing is the car? What's its aesthetics? So we can judge quality on various fronts. Durability, serviceability, reliability, conformance. So we have various measures of quality. Another way to think about quality, this is going in the other direction, but we could think about quality in terms of a critical defect. One that judgment and experience will indicate will surely result in a hazardous or unsafe condition for individuals using or experiencing the good or service. It's a critical defect. Now that is dangerous. It's injurious to us. So if we buy a car and the car's got a critical defect, the brakes don't work, for example, that's hazardous. That's unsafe. So a critical defect is a problem. So If everything else looks good about the car, but it's got a critical defect, then that is something which adversely affects the quality of the car. In fact, it badly affects the quality of the car. It could be not a critical defect, but it could be perhaps a major defect. One that's not critical, but is likely to materially reduce the usability of the good or service for its intended purpose. Back to the car again. Perhaps the brakes are okay, the brakes work, but the car has a tendency to break down. It's just inconvenient, it's not reliable. We buy the car, it's safe to drive, the brakes work, but we don't know if it's going to start the next time we ask it to start. The next time we initiate the ignition, the car may not start. That's a major defect. It could be a minor defect, one that's not likely to materially reduce the usability of the good or service for its intended purpose, but it's a defect, it's a minor defect. Perhaps the windows don't work. We can still drive the car, and it's still safe to drive. There's no critical defect, there's no major defect. It's just inconvenient. We can't put the window down. Or the seats don't fold as they should. There's some minor defect in the car. Now these things affect the quality of the car. We also have service quality. We have to make sure the service quality is consistently meeting or exceeding customer expectations, and service delivery systems performance for all service encounters. We have to make sure that we get good service, that it meets our expectations or exceeds our expectations, and it does this over and over and over, every time. So that's what we mean by service quality. Now, service quality can also look at, for example, tangibles, physical facilities, uniforms, equipment, vehicles. Let's say we take our car in to be serviced. We want to have the car checked over. It's due a service. Then, what are the people in the garage like? What are the physical features of the garage? Are the staff polite and courteous, and do they wear uniforms, and do they have a lot of equipment, and what's the feeling, the tangibles, what we can see, what we can experience? What are they like in terms of the place we've taken the car to be? Because these are symptomatic of the type of service we're likely to get. Reliability, the ability to perform the promised service dependably and accurately. Is the garage going to do a good job? Are we going to get value for money from having the car serviced there? Is it reliability? Is it reliable? Is the service reliable? Have they got an expertise in dealing with that sort of car? Have they got the equipment? Have they been trained? The responsiveness, willingness to help customers and provide prompt recovery to service upsets. Let's say we have the car serviced with them and we have an agreement with them that they will maintain the car, and the car breaks down somewhere. Will they come and help us? I mean, they're responsible for the car. We are paying them to be responsible for the car. So are they going to respond to our request to come and help us? We're broken down. Will they be there fast, or will it take forever for them to get there? Will they arrive eventually, after many hours perhaps? So how responsive are they to our request? Assurance, knowledge and courtesy of the service providers, and their ability to inspire trust and confidence in customers. We should have a whole feeling about where we are. If we take our car in for service, we should look at the premises, look at the layout, look at the professionalism of the receptionist and the efficiency of the documentation that's handled, their database about the car and about its service history. They should be able to get the car serviced with expertise, with the appropriate equipment. So it's a good experience. We are assured by what we see and our contact with the staff. So quality comes from the assurance where we feel confident about what we see. Empathy. The people at the garage, the service personnel at the garage where we take our car, they should have a caring attitude, and they should have individualized attention provided to its customers. Each customer is different, has perhaps a different set of requirements. They might have essentially the same cars, but some customers might be in a big hurry to get the car, or they can't bring it in on a certain day, or the people working at the garage, the receptionist and the staff who are booking the car in, should show some caring, should have a caring attitude towards the people, and that will make the customers feel that this is a quality service. Every service encounter provides an opportunity for error. Errors in service creation and delivery are sometimes called service upsets or service failures. And many companies can experience these. Sometimes data is entered wrongly into a database, and we have a bad experience as a consequence of it. We may be worried because we've been contacted by the company to say that the product is due to be serviced, or the product has a failure, and in fact it hasn't. It may be erroneous data entry. So there are always errors, and we have to have some sort of tolerance towards this, because data is entered by humans, and sometimes by simple mistakes, no malice, just simple mistakes, errors can be made. If the frequency of the errors is very high, then it suggests that there is some issue with quality. But a one-off, we should have some tolerance of that, in particular if it doesn't majorly inconvenience us. In services, a measure of quality analogous to defects per unit is errors per million opportunities. So it's similar to defects per unit, and here we talk about errors per million opportunities. So with products it's defects per million opportunities. With services it's errors per million opportunities. Million opportunities means there are a million contacts. For every, well, let's say, for every million contacts, how many errors are made? And that's how service quality can be assessed. How many errors per million contacts with customers, per million opportunities. Environmental quality focuses on designing and controlling work processes to improve the environment. So that may also be an issue in service quality, to ensure that the overall service fits in with our requirements, but also does it in a way that is compatible with all our obligations towards the environment. So the service itself is conducted in a way which is responsible, and that's part of the service quality. Example of errors per million opportunity. Well, a hotel might determine that there are 100 opportunities for errors during the hotel check-in process. And yesterday the hotel had 200 check-ins, so the total opportunities for errors is 20,000. Well, per million opportunities there's 100 opportunities for errors. And yesterday there were 200 check-ins. So the total opportunities for errors is 20,000. 20,000 per million opportunities. So 20,000 per million opportunity. Now, the quality personnel, the people who are responsible for quality, usually the marketing section, who may be particularly keen on ensuring good quality service, good quality product, whether if it's a physical product, reducing the defects and promoting the image of the business, if it's a service one, reducing the errors. They would be interested in this type of calculation because they wish to publish how well the business is doing and what its error rate is. Take a different example. A total of 40 service upsets were recorded by well-trained hotel check-in staff for an error rate of 40 over 20,000, or 2 per 1,000, which is equivalent to 2,000 errors per million opportunities. And again, as to whether that's good or bad depends on what's the norm for the industry, what can be reasonably expected. In truth, as long as we're dealing with people dealing with people, as in hotel situations, there will be errors and there will be misunderstandings. It's whether the errors continue and are perhaps growing in number, or whether there's no learning from past errors. These are symptomatic of quality issues, and this is what must be addressed. Now let's look at time, because time is another issue involved in measuring performance. Time relates to two types of performance measures. The speed of doing something, if you like, the average. So it's the speed at which we do something. So that's what we mean by time. How long does it take us to do it? What's the speed of doing it? So if we're making a product, how long does it take to make the product from start to finish? That's what we mean by speed. And secondly, the reliability of doing something, which is the variance. So we could work out the speed, we can work out the average speed. It takes on average a half an hour to make something. Well, what's the reliability of that? Is it always a half an hour? Or does it vary between 25 minutes and 40 minutes, or 25 minutes and 35 minutes? Where does it vary? What's the variance? So it's very much like statistics. We have an average and we have a standard deviation. In this case, actually a standard deviation squared is called variance. But in this case, we're simply talking about the average time for something to happen, for something to be done, and the reliability. In other words, what's the variance? How reliable is this figure? Once we've worked out the average, how reliable is it? So what's the variance? We've also got processing time, the time it takes to perform some task. So we should, although we now know about time in the context of the average time taken and the variance, what's the spread around the average, we should also look at the processing time. How long does it take to perform some task? And the queue time. The queue time is a fancy word for wait time. It's a fancy way of saying the waiting time. Time spent waiting. So sometimes tasks have to be lined up and we have to wait for tasks to be ready to be undertaken. So sometimes jobs are in a queue. And if we're looking at performance indicators, we should look for queue times to see what jobs are waiting to be done. Why are they waiting? Are they waiting because there are bottlenecks in the production system? Is there something stopping the jobs from not running immediately? So what's the queue time? And also the cycle time refers to the time it takes to accomplish one cycle of a process that performs work. So one cycle is from start to finish. If a particular set of tasks come together, one follows the next, then what's the cycle time? How long does it take to complete the cycle, to move from the start to the finish? What's the cycle? So when we talk about time, we're talking about various measures of time almost, or concepts of time. We're talking about the average speed, we're talking about the variance, we're talking about not just the average, but what's the likely spread around the average. We're talking about the processing time. How long does it take to perform a task, one task? How long does it take to perform that task? The queue time, what items are waiting to be completed and why are they waiting? What's wrong? Why can't they be done now? And the cycle time, how long does it take to complete all of the tasks to complete one particular job? One job may be made up from several tasks. So how long does it take to complete all the tasks? What's the cycle time? We've also got this concept of manufacturing lead time, which represents the time between the release of an order to production and shipment to the customer. So the lead time is how long does the customer have to wait? So the customer places an order today and receives the goods in a week's time. The lead time is 1 week. The order was today, next week they receive, this time next week they receive the goods, so it's 1 week lead time. So it's a measure of how long customers have to wait. Generally speaking, short lead times are good. Customers like short lead times because they get the goods faster and they're able to plan more effectively. They don't have to plan ahead. The further into the future people have to plan, the more uncertain they are of the likely outcomes. So generally speaking, we like short lead times. And as customers, in fact, we like short lead times. We place an order for something, we like to get it as fast as possible. We like to enjoy it now. We don't want to wait for a long time. If we want a new car, and we can afford a new car, and we want it, we place an order, and the salesperson say it'll be delivered in 6 months. The lead time is 6 months, let's say. That's a long time. If they said a month, that's a long time. I'd like the car now. I'd like to pay for it now and go outside and get into it and drive away. So I would like an immediate delivery. But I know the world in which we live, we have to wait. There is a lead time. The car has to be made before I can drive it away. Purchase lead time is the time required to obtain the purchased item, including order preparation, supplier lead time, transportation, and receiving and storage. So purchasing lead time is the time to obtain a purchased item. So the manufacturing lead time is the time within the company. The company receives an order and it sets about making the product. That's the manufacturing lead time. From the moment it receives the order to the time it completes it. So that's within the company. The company receives the order, the company makes the product. The manufacturing lead time. How long does it take from the time it receives the order to the time it makes the product ready for dispatch? Manufacturing lead time. The purchase lead time is that amount. It's the manufacturing lead time plus the order preparation time, the supplier lead time, the transportation of the product from the company to the sales point, the receiving, storage, all the associated paperwork that may have to go on after that, registering. So purchase lead time is longer than manufacturing lead time. Purchase lead time includes manufacturing lead time, but it includes all of the other services that come with a product. Handling the product, getting the product to the customer, doing any paperwork associated with the product, dealing with finance. So there are many issues, and with purchasing lead time, it's longer than manufacturing lead time. Sometimes processing cycle and lead times are used interchangeably, making things confusing in the real world. So it's always best to seek a definition of these terms to see how the organization is using it. They do vary from organization to organization, but the logic that we've presented here on this slide is accurate. In other words, the purchasing lead time is longer than the manufacturing lead time. The manufacturing lead time is included in the purchasing lead time. The purchasing lead time is manufacturing time plus all of the other paperwork and distribution and transport and all of the things that go with making the product. So purchasing lead time is longer. Flexibility is another issue in manufacturing and in measuring performance in particular. Flexibility is the ability to adapt quickly and effectively to changing requirements. That's what we mean by flexibility, is to be able to change quickly and effectively, to move around production lines, to change machines over from one type of production to another and do it so quickly and efficiently, to change what the company is producing to perhaps a new product, to do so quickly and efficiently. It's more flexible. Goods and services design flexibility is the ability to develop a wide range of customized goods and services to meet different or changing customer needs. So customers don't have continually one set of needs. Customers like new products, they like variations on a product, they like flexibility, they like to be able to change. So the onus is on businesses to be able to produce a variety of products, or to be able to vary the product, vary its design slightly, vary its colors, vary its texture, vary its functionality. To be able to do so at the same time maintaining its production, maintaining the core of its business, but it's flexible. It's able to bend to accommodate customer requirements, because customers' requirements are constantly changing. We've also got volume flexibility. That's the ability to respond quickly to changes in the volume and type of demand. Some businesses take this as in their course. They take this as done. This is what they do. Some businesses are tuned up to this completely. For example, businesses that experience high seasonal demands. Now, they try to diversify so that they're using their assets throughout the year, but their main sales are at particular times of the year, say around Christmas time. Or their main sales could be over the summer season. So what they need to do is step up production at certain times, or in the rest of the year produce for stock. Now, they're taking a risk if they produce for stock, but sometimes they have no choice. They have to produce for stock in order to keep the business running, to keep the machines running, to keep people working. But producing for stock means problems with cash flow. They must have the resources in periods when they're not making sales to be able to keep going. So if it's a highly seasonal business, what they will try to do, chances are, is to diversify production, to make other items which match other times of the year, or to make other items which are constant throughout the year, will have a demand which is constant throughout the year. And for the seasons, they will step up production to try and meet seasonal demand. Volume flexibility is a problem for businesses, and seasonal factors are big problems for business. To try and accommodate extra sales at particular times of the year. And then after that time of the year, sales may drop to almost nothing. But the business must continue. So there is a problem of planning and accommodating this variation in demand. Organization management spotlight. For example, Nissan flexibility. Now Nissans make cars. They may build 5 models in one assembly factory. That's because they use modular assemblies. So they're, in a sense, quite flexible. They make items. These items may fit onto different models. They're not, in a sense, making 5 different models. They're making a car, or they're making an SUV or whatever, but a lot of the parts are interchangeable. So they're able to use modular assemblies, which is much cheaper to manage. And that gives them flexibility. But many companies are trying to seek innovative ways of dealing with flexibility. It's particularly difficult in manufacturing, where specialist machines are purchased to do particular tasks. And if those tasks are only required for products at a certain time of the year, let's say, then at other times the machines may stand idle, which again is a waste of resource. So the problem here is for management to try and diversify production if it can, or to find ways of coping with this seasonality or this variation in demand, trying to find ways in which there's flexibility. In dealing with this slide, I've talked about seasonality as one of the big issues that leads to flexibility. It's important to note that there are other problems associated with flexibility. It could be a company which has got a highly sequential production line, with production flowing from, say, one machine to the next machine. Well, if one of the machines breaks down, then does the business have flexibility? Can they reroute the work in some way so that production continues while the machine is brought back online? So it's trying to find flexibility that is a problem for management. And of course, the more specialized the machine is, or the more specialized the product is, the more difficult it is to find flexible ways of coping. Now, these are some of the topics that we need to pick out when we're talking about measuring performance and looking at some of the issues in measuring performance. This is one video in several on this topic, and it's important that you look at the other videos as well. Try to do them in sequence if you can. They're all numbered 1 through to 5, I think it is, but there are other ones which are related as well. So just anything on the performance indicator theme should be looked at and checked. But also have a look at the reading material to see if you can make your own notes and fill out your understanding of this important problem, this idea of measuring performance and the issues involved in measuring performance. That's all I'm going to deal with in this particular video, however. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.